Hi, I just thought I'd get on here and explain why I'm so obsessed with this Bible thing. It must sound strange, and there's plenty of reason. When I first started this, I'm going to try and really just hit the highlights. Was January 6th, and I went to DC and I saw something take place that I would have never believed could have taken place. And so I determined not to ever believe anything that I didn't personally check out. And so when I got back, I started investigating everything. Through that period, I ran into, not purposely, some things that made me see that the Bible really had some integrity problems. Some of my friends were believing that Jesus didn't exist, but I didn't have an issue with that because I never really thought he did, to be honest. But I did, there were challenges with the Bible, but I preached this stuff for 33 years. Okay, so I was in Vacation Bible School helping, and a girl mentioned Josephus. I came home, I started looking into Josephus, and I found that he was fake. There's a crazy story in the history books about him, probably written by him, and things were so crooked. I mean, things are crooked now, but you cannot even imagine how it was back then. They had so much wealth and money, and they were so spoiled, and the aristocrats had nothing to do. If they needed something, anything, they'd go rob a colony or set up a colony, and that was their end problem. Was they had so many people and were so widely spread that they had a hard time controlling them and getting their taxes. And there were so many pagan societies, like magic and all the ancient stuff from all over the world, and just different little groups here and there with nothing really clear cut. The biggest thing, I believe, was Mithricism, which was a lot like Jesus, but I don't think it's had afterlife. I think Zoroastrianism is the one that offered the afterlife concept. At any rate, so it wasn't Constantine, but Theodophilus, I think, that made up the rules and about Christianity after Constantine decided that's what he was going to take because he needed to get some management of the group. They were so widespread. So the pagans had all these, that was the biggest kind of people, and they had temples everywhere, and they would, sell things, and that was their town hall kind of thing. And they had days that they celebrated, and it was just a mess with trying to manage people. So, they knew they had to kind of get a religion that would work. The Jews are really hard to get your hand around. I believe that they kind of stole an identity from the Sumerians because so many things, the Sumerians' Epic of Gilgamesh and so many of their stories are exactly like the ones that you find written in the Old Testament. And, but that gets a lot deeper. So, okay, where were we? I've got so much going on in my mind about all this to try and get the high points. Okay, so Theodophilus, I think that's how you say his name, he was in charge at the time that they set up the rules. But even before that, like they say Jesus was supposed to be born around 6 AD or something like that, and then live 33 years, or maybe 6 BC and live 33 years. I can't remember. However, okay, where were we? Okay, let's just go back to Constantine. Okay, the Jews were different little groups. They were black with wiry hair, everything says, and there were little groups of them here and there, and they seemed to be very disciplined and self-loathing, basically, and think that for different reasons, but they worshipped all kinds of different things. The sun, and if I'm right, they also worshipped an animalistic group for a while. They worshipped different things. They were a very small part of the population. I'm thinking I read like 1/6 or maybe even less. But, and then the Christians were hardly anything. Some people thought that the Essenes were the Christians, and they were another group of people that felt like whoever the creator was wanted them to be self-loathing and give everything up to live very meagerly for some reason. Now, I don't know. If I created a world, I would want it to be joyful and full, and certainly not like that. Anyway, so the Essenes were thought to be early Christians. Don't think so. Nothing lined up. All they wanted to do was they thought there was a God and they wanted to bow and self-loathe so they could get to heaven. No, was it to heaven? I don't know. Okay. So the Essenes are out of the picture. They weren't a problem. I'm trying to think. So Constantine was trying to deal with all these different pagan churches. And the pagans were the ones that he was really onto and punishing, because he had decided to make it a Christian Rome, and they weren't doing what he wanted because they wouldn't quit selling alms and stuff in the temples, and they wouldn't quit their magic. And he hated that because they had power that, he didn't, but he hated them. And so he tortured them awful. I mean, skinned them alive and all kinds of awful, awful stuff. So the pagans would pretend to be Christians. And because they didn't want to get beaten, but they would still be going and doing their thing. And then they got tired of trying to be Christian. They kept going back. And Constantine, it says Eusebius isn't trustworthy, and neither is Josephus trustworthy, and neither is Philo trustworthy, as far as historians. And who knows about the rest, but you can tie a couple things down. So the same stories, like Moses, the story of Moses being put in a reed cradle or boat, floated down the river, that's in everything. I think that's Sargon from the Epic of Gilgamesh. That's Sargon from Sumeria was put in a reed thing. Who else? Moses, obviously. None of these people are probably real. We don't know, but it's very suspicious. Because you see, okay, so at that point, I'm trying to figure out, okay, so I haven't done a lot of research into the first pope, but obviously it was Peter, around 30 was it? 30 BC, no, AD. And if that's so, who made him pope? Well, they say he was pope because he just was. Yeah, right. And then, so then 350 years later to Constantine, that's a long time. So you get back there, now we've got popes, and there are 3 in a row. Peter, somebody with an L, and another one, 3 of them that aren't thought to be real. I know Peter isn't real, but the other 2 aren't thought to be real either. But they're names that are counted. And that makes a big deal because if you're writing ancient literature, you're probably putting code in it. And so if you mean 3 and you write 2, you can't change numbers around because the numbers are really important. Tonight when I was looking up something in this old literature, online actually, because I didn't have it in my library, but I was looking at it and I looked up the guy that I was just talking about. And number 44, that was his page number. That's always how it is. 44, 144, always. It's interesting. Anyway, so Constantine, not just him, but mostly Theodophilus or whoever the heck he is. At first I thought it was Justinian, but it wasn't. It was the Theodophilus guy. He just hated the pagans, so he was trying to kill them, and he was trying to build the Christian church up. So if you could read the stuff he wrote, if it's correct, and I don't know why it wouldn't be, but who knows, because, it might, it's one of the tablets now that I think about it, but so it is not correct, but it is a book of what's said to be true. There's so many pieces to the puzzle, and I just keep adding more stuff. So then I was reading that this Theodophilus guy said in his 12 tables, that's the guidelines for Christianity. And so he's writing it down, and he's just saying, we want you to be a Christian. And if you're anything else, basically your life is not worth anything, and you're heathen, and we're going to make sure that it's known. And it just basically went, your life's going to suck if you don't be a Christian. Just like they did with the natives. The language and everything is horrible, the way they treated pagans mostly, and they didn't treat Christians as bad. But okay, so here, they did kill some of them, but you got to remember, if Philo said it, or Josephus said it, or Eusebius said it, forget it, it's not true. So that's who says most of the stuff. Okay, so then some of the customs of the Israelites were to sacrifice the oldest son, like Abraham was doing with Isaac, And so, that had me all teared up and making a big deal out of, oh my God, talking about that. I did so many sermons on Isaac and Abraham, and it's bullshit. And there was a regular occurrence. Same with crucifixion. There were so many people that professed to be the Messiah, and if they were, they crucified them. It was regular, like 100 a day, I heard at one point. I mean, we're talking lots of people. So 100 a day sounds outrageous. I'm going to have to check that. I've got a note. I'm tired. I can't imagine it being 100 a day, but it could be. Anyway, I'm just kind of talking off the charts here tonight. So with any details, but I have them. So they wrote this thing up, and it was so very ugly. And then different Bibles will tell you different things. The Mason Bible starts out with the Egyptian gods in the front. They worship them. Jefferson, Thomas Jefferson took all the red letters out of his Bible because he knew it was BS. And none of them were Christians. I'm not going to say none, but no, I should say none, because they were taught out of the best books. Oh, that's another thing. Well, guess who destroyed the monuments and the books? The Christians. Yeah. And I just downloaded a list of the evils of the Catholic Church. You don't want to hear it before you go to bed. It'll make your stomach wrenched. On and on and on and on. About limiting people, about charging people, about making people do things for bullshit, about controlling people, about abusing people, about taking things from people. Oh, it's so sick. And yet, okay, so it was obvious that the government and the church were one. There's no question. Go back and read it. There's no question. They worked together. And that was part of the deal. And then later, I think it was the Edict of Milan, was it? One of the edicts later in the 300s, they said that you had to be a Christian or you were no more than an infidel, and that you should get punished in some way for it. And I've got papers that just lay it right out from ancient text, and the ancient stuff that I've got, that I found stuff in, you would never have found it because it's not under religion, it's not under Jesus, it's not under God, it's not under anything like that. It's under government of Rome. So, and you can't really get a hold of it. I was lucky enough to find one PDF copy, and the rest I get because I am subscribed to, like, the Harvard things where the learning, websites. Anyway, I've been doing it a while. What else? So all those things, not to speak of the contradictions, and what else? The name changes, the calendar changes, and then what it really means. Okay, so Doug realized that in Genesis 1:7, you think that it's talking about firmament, meaning where we're standing, but it doesn't. It's talking about pyramids. The word was mistranslated, and Doug did some real research on it. which makes absolute perfect sense. Everything was based in Egyptian stuff. Everything. Other than Sumeria. And the funny thing is, I had a ketamine treatment because I struggle with depression, and when I did, I saw Sumeria. I never knew Sumeria in my life. So that was kind of funny. I've had weird things happen to me all my life, really weird stuff. I really do need to put them up here. Nobody will believe it, but probably everybody says that, but crazy stuff. All right, well, I think that's what I wanted to do, is just lay out the organization that, of how you could see it easy. And then I thought, well, maybe I should lay it out the way I've uncovered it. And, I didn't even mention, when I was looking, I started studying language. Because, first of all, I always wanted to understand Hebrew. That was my limitation when I was studying, teaching the Bible. And so I thought that. Then I found Hebrew, and then you find Paleo-Hebrew, and then you go, nope, it was Sumerian. And so then you find Sumer and the Akkadians and all that, and find out that there was a whole civilization that had a creation story and the whole bit before Jesus ever started. And here, most people, didn't you think that the world started with the Bible? That, Adam and Eve were the first? Not at all. Not at all. We're like in the 7th time around, because the earth resets every 12,000 years. And nothing we can do about it. They want us to think we can do. That's why they made up the whole carbon footprint, which is bunk. Is there a problem? Oh, yes, a huge problem for every one of us, with no solutions in sight right now, and that's what I keep yelling about. But, yeah, it's not global warming, but it's the climate's in big trouble, and we're sitting on it. And leadership has chosen not to say anything to you. Take a guess why. Over and out.